Jake Morrison stood in the massive glass chamber, looking out at the swirling purple clouds of the gas giant below. The Galactic Council Station orbited high above the planet's storms, its metal corridors filled with creatures from 40 different worlds. Some walked on two legs like humans. Others floated in tanks of green liquid. A few crawled on the walls with sticky feet. Jake had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now. He was 52 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. His job was to speak for all humans in the galaxy. Today, he carried the most important message of his life. The council chamber was huge. Hundreds of alien beings sat in curved rows that rose up like a stadium. The air smelled like metal and strange chemicals. Translation devices hummed as they turned alien words into human speech. Jake walked to the center of the room where a small platform waited for him. High, Consular Vexthara looked down at him from her golden throne. She was from the Zephyrian Empire, and her skin looked like living crystal. Light danced across her face as she moved. The Zephyrians were warriors who had conquered 12 star systems. They thought humans were weak because Earth had only joined the galactic community. 30 years ago, near her sat the representative from the Vorthan Collective. The Vorthans looked like tall, thin people, but their heads were too big and their eyes were solid black. They built the best computers in the galaxy and thought they were smarter than everyone else. Jake took a deep breath and began to speak. His voice echoed through the chamber. Friends and fellow council members, I bring urgent news from Earth. Our scientists have discovered something terrible moving through space beyond our galaxy. Dr. Lisa Hamilton leads our best research team. They have been watching the deep space monitors for months. He pressed a button on his datapad. A hologram appeared above his head, showing swirling patterns of energy moving through the darkness between stars. These energy readings are unlike anything we have seen before. The patterns match old records we found on dead planets, worlds that were destroyed long ago by something powerful and ancient. We believe this thing has been sleeping for millions of years. Now it is waking up. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some aliens laughed. Others made clicking sounds with their mouths. Jake could see that many of them were not taking him seriously. Vexthara's crystal face glowed brighter. Ambassador Morrison, your people have been in space for barely 3 decades. Your sensors are primitive compared to ours. Perhaps your machines are simply broken. More laughter came from the Zephyrian section. Jake felt his face get hot, but he kept his voice calm. Our sensors are working perfectly. We have checked them many times. Dr. Hamilton has spent her entire life studying space anomalies. She knows what she is seeing. A slug-like creature from the Gastropod Federation spoke up. Its voice was wet and bubbly through the translator. Humans always want attention. They make up scary stories to seem important. Jake pressed another button. The hologram changed to show star charts with red marks scattered across them. These are the locations where our deep space scouts have gone missing. 12 ships in the past 2 months. They were investigating the energy signatures when they stopped sending signals. Commander Alex Rodriguez sat in the human section behind. Jake, he was younger, with dark hair and the straight posture of a military man. Alex had fought in the border wars when pirates attacked human colonies. He knew about real danger. Alex stood up and walked to the platform. High Counselor, I have prepared defensive plans for the entire galaxy. If this threat is real, we need to work together. Our fleets should coordinate their positions. We should build early warning systems. He activated his own hologram, showing fleet movements and defensive positions around important star systems. The Zephyrian Empire has the strongest warships. The Vorthan Collective has the best shields. The Aquilan Republic has the fastest scouts. If we combine our strengths, we can protect our worlds. The bird-like aquilins ruffled their golden feathers. Their representative spoke in a high musical voice. "Why should we listen to humans? You have the smallest fleet in the council. Your ships are slow, and your weapons are old." Vexthara nodded. "The Zephyrian Empire has never been defeated in battle. Our crystal armor can stop any weapon. We do not need help from primitive humans." The Vorthan representative's black eyes showed no emotion. "Our computational models show that our defensive systems are perfect. Nothing can break through Vorthan shields." Jake felt frustration building in his chest. These aliens were so proud that they could not see the danger coming for all of them. "Please, you must listen. The energy patterns are getting stronger every day. Our long-range sensors show it moving toward our galaxy. Dr. Hamilton estimates it will arrive within 6 months." Days passed. Jake submitted report after report to the council. Each one contained new data from Earth's monitoring stations. Energy signatures were definitely getting closer. More human scout ships went missing at the galaxy's edge, but the aliens were too, busy arguing about trade routes and mining rights. The Zephyrians wanted to expand their territory. The Vorthans were upset about tariffs on their computer exports. The gastropods complained that other species were hunting in their space dot every morning. Jake walked through the station's corridors, passing alien diplomats who ignored him. They whispered among themselves in their strange languages, probably making jokes about the worried humans. Commander Alex Rodriguez showed his defensive plans to anyone who would look. Military officers from other species glanced at his charts and walked away. They thought human tactics were too simple, too basic for their advanced civilizations. At night, Jake sat in his small quarters and read the latest reports from Earth. Dr. Lisa Hamilton sent more data every day. The thing in deep space was definitely getting bigger and stronger. It was moving faster now, as if it sensed the living worlds of their galaxy. Jake wrote letter after letter to the High Council, begging them to take action. Each letter went into a pile with thousands of other diplomatic papers. Nobody read them. Nobody cared. The aliens had made their choice. They thought humans were too new, too primitive to understand the galaxy's real dangers. They believed their own technology and military power could handle any threat. Jake Morrison looked out at the purple gas giant and wondered how long they had before the aliens learned how wrong they were. Captain Ben Walker gripped the arms of his command chair as the ship shuddered around him. The Frontier was Earth's newest reconnaissance vessel, built for long-range scouting missions at the edge of known space. Ben had been exploring the outer rim for 2 months, following the energy signatures that Dr. Lisa Hamilton had detected from her lab on Earth. Ben was 38 years old, with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. He had spent 15 years in Earth's Space Navy, but he had never seen anything like what appeared on his main screen now. The planet Kethmer hung in space before them like a glowing hole. It had been a Zephyrian mining world with 3 million crystal-skinned workers. Now its surface was melting. Rivers of liquid rock flowed across continents that had existed for billions of years. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy drains from the planet's core," said Lieutenant Carol Price from her sensor station. She was young, maybe 25, with red hair tied back in a tight bun. Her hands shook as she worked her controls. "Something is sucking the energy right out of the planet." Ben leaned forward in his chair. "Show me what's doing it." The main screen to show the space above Kethmer. At first, Ben saw nothing but stars. Then something moved in the darkness. It was so big that his mind had trouble understanding. What he was looking at, the thing was the size of a small moon, but it was not made of rock. Its surface looked like metal mixed with flesh. Thousands of tentacle-like arms reached down from its body toward the dying planet below. Each arm was miles long and covered with strange machinery that glowed with stolen energy. "My God," whispered Ensign Danny Chun from the communications station. He was the youngest member of the crew, barely 22 years old. "What is that thing?" As they watched, more arms unfolded from the creature's body. They moved like living things, wrapping around Kethmer and digging deep into its crust. The planet's surface cracked and split as its molten core was drained away. "I'm picking up a signal," said Carol. Her voice was barely audible. "It's broadcasting." "Something. Put it on speakers," Ben ordered. A sound filled the bridge that made everyone's skin crawl. It was like metal grinding against stone, mixed with the voice of something very old and very hungry. The universal translator struggled to make sense of it. "I am the Harvester," the voice said in words that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I have slept between the stars for 4 million years. Now I wake to feed. Your worlds will give me strength for the journey ahead." Ben felt ice water in his veins. "Carol, record everything. Get all the sensor data you can. We need to get this information back to Earth Command immediately." "Captain, look," said Danny, pointing at the screen. The Harvester was changing. As it drained Kethmer's energy, the creature grew larger. New arms sprouted from its body. Strange organs pulsed with stolen power. What had started as a moon-sized monster was becoming something even more terrible. "Ben to all stations, the captain spoke into his communicator. "Prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace. We're getting out of here now." But before they could move, 3 Zephyrian warships dropped out of hyperspace near them. The ships were beautiful, made of the same crystal material as their builders. They glowed with internal light and moved like angry wasps toward the Harvester. "Opened a communication channel. Zephyrian vessels, this is Captain Walker of the Earthship Frontier. That creature is too powerful for a direct attack. You need to retreat and call for reinforcements." The reply came from Admiral Zakfin, the leader of the small Zephyrian fleet. His crystal face filled the screen, glowing with rage. "Humans have no place in this battle. We will destroy this thing and show the galaxy that Zephyrian warriors fear nothing." The 3 crystal ships opened fire with their most powerful weapons. Beams of pure energy struck the Harvester's surface, creating explosions that could be seen from orbit. For a moment, Ben hoped the aliens might actually damage the creature. Then the Harvester struck back. Dozens of its tentacle arms whipped through space faster than the eye could follow. They wrapped around all 3 Zephyrian ships at once. The crystal hulls that had never been broken in 1,000 battles cracked like eggshells. The ship's energy weapons flickered and died as the Harvester drained their power cores. "Admiral Zakfin, respond," Ben called out. But there was only silence from the dying Zephyrian fleet. Within minutes, the 3 warships were empty metal shells floating in space. The Harvester had sucked out every bit of energy they contained, leaving nothing but cold, dead hulks behind. "Captain, I'm detecting more ships approaching," Carol reported. "Vorthan vessels, coming in fast." 6 ships from the Vorthan Collective appeared on the edge of the system. They looked like flying triangles made of black metal, covered with sensors and computer systems. Ben knew the Vorthans were proud of their defensive technology. Their shields were supposed to be unbreakable. The Vorthan commander, a tall thin alien with huge black eyes, appeared on Ben's communication screen. "This is Fleet Commander Nexvel. Human ship, move away from the combat area. Vorthan science will succeed where Zephyrian brute force failed." The 6 ships formed a perfect formation and activated their shields. Barriers of pure energy surrounded each vessel, glowing blue-white against the darkness of space. The Vorthans had calculated that their shields could absorb any attack. The Harvester turned its attention to the new arrivals. This time, it did not use its tentacle arms. Instead, strange devices emerged from its body and pointed at the Vorthen fleet. Ben's sensors detected energy beams unlike anything in the database. The beams hit the Vorthen shields and simply passed through them as if they were not there. The energy struck the ship's hulls and began draining their power. Within seconds, the proud Vorthen computers went dark. The aliens inside had just enough time to send one confused message before their life support failed. Impossible. Fleet Commander Nexval's voice came through the static. Our shields should stop anything. The mathematics are perfect. This cannot be happening. Then his voice cut off forever. Ben watched 6 more ships become floating graveyards. The Harvester absorbed their energy and grew even larger. Now it was big enough to swallow entire cities. That's it, Ben said quietly. Carol, send an emergency message to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Tell them the threat is real, and it's worse than we thought. Danny, plot a course for home. Maximum speed. As the Frontier jumped into hyperspace, Ben took one last look at the Harvester. The creature had finished draining Kethmer. The planet was now a cold, dead rock with no energy left in its core. 3 million Zephyrians were gone. 9 of the galaxy's most advanced warships had been destroyed in minutes. But what scared Ben the most was the message the Harvester had broadcast just before they left. The first feeding is complete. Now I will find more worlds. The harvest has begun. During the long journey home, Ben wrote his report for Earth Command. He tried to describe the Harvester's size and power, but words seemed too small for what he had witnessed. He ended the report with a simple statement. The galaxy is not prepared for this. Nothing we have can stop it. When the Frontier reached Earth, Ben delivered his report directly to General Kate Sullivan. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp green eyes. She had been expecting this news. How long do we have? She asked. Based on its speed and the energy it absorbed, maybe 4 months before it reaches the core systems, Ben replied. General Sullivan nodded. Then it's time to implement the protocols. Send word to all human colonies. Tell them to prepare for Phase 2. Ben did not know what Phase 2 meant, but he could see in the General's eyes that Earth had been planning for this day, long before the aliens ever listened to their warnings. High Counselor Vex Thara paced back and forth in her crystal chamber aboard the Council Station. Her body glowed brighter with anger as she read the latest reports. The Harvester had destroyed 17 Zephyrian worlds in 3 weeks. Her people's greatest fortress planets had fallen silent. Entire fleets had vanished without sending a single distress call. The council chamber was half empty now. Many alien species had recalled their ambassadors to defend their home worlds. The proud Vorthen Collective had lost their core computational worlds. Their massive thinking machines that had run their civilization for 1,000 years were now cold and dark. Vex Thara looked across the chamber at the human section. It was completely empty. Ambassador Jake Morrison had disappeared 2 days ago. His office was cleared out, and there was no sign of where he had gone. The only thing left behind was a short message on his desk. Humanity thanks the Council for their consideration of our warnings. Where are the humans? Demanded Councillor Grix of the Aquilan Republic. His golden feathers were ruffled with fear. The bird-like Aquilans had lost their beautiful flight cities when the Harvester drained the power from their floating platforms. Millions of his people had fallen from the sky. They have abandoned us, said the wet, bubbling voice of the Gastropod Federation representative. Just like cowards would do, but Vex Thara was not so sure. She had been watching human behavior for weeks now, and something felt wrong. The humans had not sent distress calls when their outer colonies went silent. They had not asked for help or refuge. They had simply disappeared. Dr. Nina Foster sat in the Council's research section, studying her computer screens. She was the galaxy's expert on alien psychology, and her job was to understand how different species thought and acted. Nina was a middle-aged woman with short gray hair and worried eyes behind thick glasses. "The human response pattern is unusual," Nina said to her assistant, a young Vorthan named Tekanor. His tall, thin body was hunched over his datapad, trying to make sense of the readings. "Most species send panic signals when threatened. They call for help, form alliances, or flee in obvious ways. Humans are doing none of these things." Tekanor's large black eyes showed confusion. "Perhaps they're simply afraid. Fear makes beings act strangely." Nina shook her head. "No, this is different. Look at the pattern. Human colonies at the galaxy's edge went silent exactly 3 days before the Harvester reached them. Not after. It attacked, but before. That suggests advanced planning." She pulled up star charts, showing human settlements throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked the colonies that had stopped communicating. "See here? The silence is spreading inward from the rim worlds. But it's not following the Harvester's path. It's following a completely different pattern. The humans are evacuating their people in a specific order. Meanwhile, in a hidden bunker deep beneath Earth's surface, General Kate Sullivan stood before a wall of screens showing the galaxy's destruction. Each screen displayed a different star system falling to the Harvester. The creature had grown enormous, its tentacle arms now spanning entire solar systems as it fed on star after star. "Phase 2 is complete," reported Colonel Rick Davis, a stocky man with buzz-cut hair. "All outer colonies have been evacuated. The civilians are safe in the deep space shelters." General Sullivan nodded without taking her eyes off the screens. "What about Phase 3? Admiral Tony Martinez has the evacuation fleets ready. We can move the remaining population within 48 hours if needed." Dr. Lisa Hamilton entered the command center carrying a datapad filled with new sensor readings. Her face was pale with exhaustion. She had been working without sleep for days, tracking the Harvester's movements and trying to understand its true nature. "General, I have troubling news," Lisa said. "The Harvester isn't just randomly destroying worlds. It's following a specific pattern. It's testing our defenses." She activated a hologram showing the Harvester's path through the galaxy. "Look at which worlds it hits first. Always the ones with the strongest military forces. It's learning how to fight us by destroying our best defenders." General Sullivan's green eyes narrowed. "What does that mean for Earth?" "It means this thing is intelligent. More intelligent than we thought. And there's something else." Lisa's voice dropped to a whisper. "The energy patterns it's broadcasting into deep space. It's sending signals to something else, something bigger." Back on the council station, panic was spreading through the remaining alien delegations. The Harvester had just destroyed the Zephyrian home world, turning the crystal planet into a dead rock in less than an hour. Vexthara had watched her peoples. Ancient capital city melt like ice in the sun. "We need human help," she said to the emergency council session. Her crystal body flickered with desperation. "They warned us about this. They must know how to fight it." Counselor Grix flapped his golden wings nervously. "But how do we contact them? All human communication networks are silent. Our ships cannot even find Earth's location anymore." Dr. Nina Foster stood up from her research station. "I've been analyzing the situation. I believe the humans haven't abandoned us out of cruelty or revenge. They've made a strategic decision to cut their losses." "They?" Surviving aliens stared at her in shock. "What do you mean?" "Ask the gastropod representative." Nina activated her own hologram, showing human behavioral patterns from the past months. "Look at their actions. They tried to warn us for 6 months. When we ignored them, they immediately began evacuating. They're people. They didn't waste time on politics or negotiations. They simply wrote us off as unsavable and moved to protect what they could actually save. That's impossible, Vexthara said. No species is that coldly calculating. Humans are, Nina replied. It's one of their most distinctive traits. When they determine that a situation cannot be won, they don't waste resources on impossible victories. They focus on long-term survival instead. The truth of her words sank in as another report arrived. The Harvester had just destroyed the last Vorthan computational world. Their civilization, built on pure logic and mathematics, had been proven utterly wrong about their ability to defend themselves. Deep in Earth's command bunker, Admiral Tony Martinez received new orders from General Sullivan. His weather-beaten face showed no emotion as he read the encrypted message. "Sir, final evacuation order confirmed," he said to his staff. "All remaining humans are to be moved to the deep space colonies within 24 hours. His aide, a young lieutenant named Amy Brooks, looked confused. "What about Earth itself, sir? Are we abandoning our home world?" Admiral Martinez looked at the screens showing the Harvester's approach. It would reach the solar system within days. "Earth has served its purpose," he said quietly. "Our real home is wherever humans survive, and we've made sure that we'll be very far from here." As the last human evacuation ships left Earth's orbit, they passed massive defense platforms that had been built in secret around the solar system. The weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, designed not to destroy the Harvester, but to study it. Earth would make one final contribution to the galaxy's defense. When the Harvester arrived, it would find a trap waiting for it. Not a trap meant to kill it, but one designed to learn everything about how it fought and what it truly was. The surviving aliens finally understood the depth of human planning when they intercepted a brief transmission from the evacuation fleet. Dr. Lisa Hamilton's voice carried across the void. "The Harvester is not the real threat. It is a scout for something much worse. The Architect is coming, and when it arrives, this entire galaxy will be harvested. We tried to save you all. Now we can only save ourselves and warn the next galaxy." The transmission ended, leaving the aliens alone with their dying worlds and the terrible knowledge that humanity had been right about everything. Dr. Lisa Hamilton sat in her laboratory aboard the evacuation ship Sanctuary, surrounded by screens showing data that made her stomach turn cold. The ship was one of hundreds carrying the last humans away from their dying galaxy. Outside the small window, she could see Earth growing smaller behind them. A blue dot that would soon be nothing, but a memory dot. Her fingers moved across the keyboard as she prepared her final transmission to the galactic community. The message would reach the few remaining alien survivors scattered across dead worlds. It was humanity's last gift to the species that had refused to listen. "This is Dr. Lisa Hamilton of Earth Science Command," she spoke into the recorder. "I am sending you our complete research data on the entity you call the Harvester. But first, you must understand the terrible truth we discovered too late to save your worlds." She paused, looking at the readings on her screen. The numbers told a story of cosmic horror that few minds could truly grasp. The Harvester is not a single creature. It is a probe sent by something we call the Architect. Our deep space sensors have detected this entity moving between galaxy clusters for millions of years. It destroys entire galaxies, consuming their energy to fuel its journey to the next target. Captain Diana Wells stood on the bridge of the bridge, human scout ship observer, watching the final battle for the Galactic Council's mobile capital through her ship's sensors. The massive station had been the pride of galactic civilization, a city-sized structure that housed representatives from every known species. Now it was dying. Diana was 45 years old with silver-streaked hair and steady hands that had guided ships through dangerous space for 20 years. She had volunteered to stay behind and record the galaxy's final moments while other humans fled to safety. "Captain, the Harvester has reached the station," reported Lieutenant Paul Carter from his sensor station. He was a young man with nervous energy who kept checking his readings as if hoping they would change. On the main screen, Diana watched tentacle arms, longer than Earth's moon, wrap around the council station. The structure that had taken 100 years to build was crushed like an egg in the Harvester's grip. Millions of alien beings died in seconds as their air leaked into space and their power systems were drained completely. "Send a report to Earth Command," Diana ordered. "Galactic defense capacity has been eliminated. The Harvester is preparing for the next phase." She could see new organs growing on the Harvester's surface, pulsing with stolen energy. The creature was changing, adapting, preparing for something bigger than anyone had imagined. Meanwhile, the last surviving aliens attempted to reach human space, hoping to find sanctuary or at least answers to the nightmare consuming their galaxy. A small fleet of refugee ships from a dozen different species approached the edge of the solar system, led by High Counselor Vexthara in her personal escape vessel. What they found there made them understand just how badly they had underestimated humanity. Earth's asteroid belt had been transformed into a massive fortress. Every large rock had been hollowed out and filled with weapons platforms that looked nothing like the simple human technology they remembered. These devices were clearly designed to fight threats far beyond normal space warfare. The moon's surface bristled with defensive installations that could have protected entire star systems. Energy shields covered the lunar colonies in barriers, stronger than anything the Vorthans had ever built. Weapon arrays pointed outward into deep space, watching for enemies that came from between the galaxies. "How long have they been building this?" whispered Vexthara as her ship's sensors tried to catalog the defenses. Her crystal body flickered with amazement and fear. But most shocking of all was the discovery that Earth itself was almost empty. The planet that had once held 8 billion humans now showed only scattered lights in a few cities. Massive launch platforms covered entire continents. Evidence of the greatest evacuation in galactic history. Commander Steve Adams led the final human evacuation convoy, a fleet of ships carrying the last few million people away from their home system. His vessels passed the floating graveyards where alien worlds had once thrived, their crews maintaining perfect radio silence, even as they witnessed the death of galactic civilization. Steve was a quiet man with gray eyes and steady nerves. He had been born on Mars and had never expected to see Earth abandoned in his lifetime. But he understood the necessity of what they were doing. "Sir, alien ships are requesting permission to join our convoy," reported his communications officer, Ensign Mark Thompson. Steve looked at the sensor readings showing the desperate refugee fleet. A few thousand survivors from species that had once numbered in the billions. "Negative," he replied. "Our destination is classified. They would only slow us down." It was a hard decision, but Steve knew that humanity's survival depended on reaching their hidden colonies before the Architect arrived. Every delay increased the risk that their entire species would be discovered and destroyed. Dr. Lisa Hamilton's transmission continued across the galaxy, reaching the ears of aliens who had finally learned to listen. The Harvester tests a galaxy's defenses. If it encounters strong resistance, the Architect moves on to easier prey. If it finds weak defenses, the Architect comes to feed. You failed the test by ignoring our warnings and refusing to work together. The message included detailed sensor data about the Architect, humanity's most terrifying discovery. The entity was larger than most solar systems, a creature of pure energy and ancient hunger that had been traveling between galaxies since the universe was young. "We estimate the Architect will arrive in your galaxy within 6 months," Lisa's voice continued. "Nothing you have can stop it. But there is still hope for the universe." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Humanity's seed ships have already reached other galaxies. We are warning civilizations that might be wiser than yours were. Each galaxy that prepares properly increases the chances that someone, somewhere, will find a way to stop the architect permanently. Back on the Observer, Captain Diana Wells received new orders from Earth Command. Her mission was almost complete, but there was one final task to perform. "Paul, are you reading those energy spikes from the Harvester?" she asked. Lieutenant Carter nodded, his face pale. "Yes, Captain. It's broadcasting something into deep space. The signal is incredibly powerful." Diana felt ice in her veins. The Harvester was calling its master. Soon, the architect would begin its journey to their galaxy, drawn by the promise of easy feeding. "That's our cue to leave," she said. "Set course for the rendezvous point. Maximum speed." As the Observer jumped into hyperspace, Diana took one last look at the galaxy where humanity had lived for thousands of years. It was already starting to die. Stars were going dark as the Harvester drained their energy. Soon, nothing would remain but cold space and floating rocks. But humanity had not given up. They had simply changed the battlefield. In distant galaxies, human ships were already making contact with alien civilizations, sharing the hard-learned lessons of their home galaxy's destruction. And next time the architect came hunting, it would find prey that knew how to fight back. Dr. Lisa Hamilton ended her transmission with humanity's final message to the dying galaxy. Learn from our data. Maybe the next galaxy will be wiser than this one was. Maybe someone will finally find a way to stop the hunger that travels between the stars. The message faded into static, leaving the surviving aliens alone with their dead worlds and the knowledge that humanity had been playing a game far larger than any of them had imagined. 1 year had passed since the Harvester first appeared at the galaxy's edge. The Milky Way was now a graveyard of dead stars and empty space. Where billions of living worlds had once orbited their suns, nothing remained but cold rocks floating in darkness. The Harvester had grown beyond imagination. What started as a creature the size of a small moon now spanned entire solar systems. Its tentacle arms reached across light years, draining energy from every star they touched. Whole sectors that had once blazed with the light of civilization were now dark and silent. But humanity's desperate gamble had failed. Long range sensors detected something moving through the void between galaxies, something so vast that it blocked out entire regions of stars. The architect was coming, just as Dr. Lisa Hamilton had predicted. And despite the complete destruction of galactic civilization, it had decided that this galaxy was worth harvesting. Commander Janet Price sat in the hidden observation station at the edge of what used to be the Zephyrian Empire. She was one of only 50 humans who had volunteered to stay behind and watch the galaxy's final moments. Her job was to record everything and send the data to the human colonies in distant galaxies. Janet was 36 years old with dark hair and tired eyes. She had been a promising young officer before the Harvester came. Now she was probably going to die alone in the darkness between dead stars. "Commander, the architect has entered our galaxy," reported Sergeant Tom Wilson from his sensor station. His voice was steady, but Janet could see his hands shaking as he worked his controls. The main screen showed something that human minds were not meant to comprehend. The architect was not a creature in any sense that living beings could understand. It was a structure of pure energy and ancient technology that stretched across space like a living constellation. Parts of it existed in normal space, while other parts seemed to fold through dimensions that had no names. Wherever the architect touched, reality itself seemed to bend and break. Stars were not just drained of energy, but completely unmade. There, matter converted into forms that followed no known laws of physics. Planets simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but erased from the universe, as if they had never been. "Send the final report to the colonies," Janet ordered. Include everything we've learned about both the Harvester and the Architect. As Tom transmitted the data through hidden communication arrays, Janet composed what would be humanity's last message from their home galaxy. Meanwhile, scattered across the dead systems, a few thousand alien survivors huddled in emergency shelters and hidden bases. They were all that remained of civilizations that had once ruled the galaxy. High Counselor Vexthara was among them, her crystal body dim with despair as she watched her species face extinction. The aliens had spent the past year trying to understand the data that Dr. Lisa Hamilton had sent them. Their best remaining scientists worked desperately to find some weakness in the Architect, some way to fight back against cosmic forces beyond their comprehension. It was useless. The technology gap was too large. The Architect was to their civilization what their civilization had been to primitive bacteria. Then, as the Architect began its final approach to the galaxy's core, a new transmission reached the survivors. It came from deep space, far beyond the galaxy's edge. The signal was weak but clear, carrying the voice of General Kate Sullivan. Survivors of the Milky Way galaxy, this is General Sullivan of the Human Deep Space Command. We know you can hear this message. We know you are afraid and alone. We want you to understand that you are not abandoned out of cruelty or revenge. Vexthara listened to the transmission with growing amazement. The humans were still alive, still fighting, even after their galaxy was doomed. We tried to save everyone, Sullivan's voice continued. When that became impossible, we chose to save what we could. Humanity's seed ships reached the Andromeda Galaxy 6 months ago. We have made contact with the civilizations there. We are teaching them what we learned from your mistakes. The transmission included images from Andromeda, showing massive construction. Projects as dozens of alien species worked together to build defenses against the Architect. Unlike the Milky Way species, these aliens had listened to humanity's warnings. They were preparing for the ancient threat with unity and purpose. The Canis Major dwarf galaxy has also been warned, Sullivan's message continued. So have the civilizations in the large and small Magellanic Clouds. Each galaxy that prepares properly makes it harder for the Architect to feed. Janet Price watched from her observation station as the Architect's tendrils reached the solar system where Earth had once been. The planet was long gone, evacuated and abandoned according to humanity's careful plans. But the Architect found something else waiting for it there. Hidden devices activated across Earth's former orbit, systems that had been built in secret while the aliens ignored human warnings. They were not weapons designed to hurt the Architect. Instead, they were sensors and transmitters, built to study the ancient entity and send that data to every galaxy within transmission range. Final phase activated, Janet reported to the human colonies. Earth's sacrifice has begun. The devices recorded everything about the Architect's feeding process, its energy patterns, its methods of breaking down reality itself. All of this information was transmitted instantly across vast distances to human settlements in other galaxies. Earth's final gift was not salvation for their own galaxy, but knowledge that might save countless others. As the Architect consumed the last energy from the Milky Way's core, General Sullivan's transmission reached its conclusion. To the survivors who are listening to this message, you have a choice. You can despair and wait for death, or you can help us plant seeds for the future. We are sending coordinates to a small research station hidden in the void between galaxies. There you will find our complete archives on the Architect and the Harvester. The coordinates appeared on every surviving alien communication system. Study our data. Learn from what happened here. Maybe someday, one of the galaxies we warn will find a way to stop the Architect permanently. Maybe they will succeed where we failed. Vexthara made her decision immediately. She gathered the few remaining Zephyrian survivors and set course for the coordinates. Other alien groups did the same. If they were going to die, They would die trying to help prevent this horror from spreading to other galaxies out at the Hidden Research Station. They found humanity's final message waiting for them. It was recorded by Dr. Lisa Hamilton just before her evacuation ship reached the safety of distant space. We gave you the warnings. We showed you the data. We offered solutions that could have saved everyone. You chose pride over survival. Now you understand the cost of ignoring those you thought were beneath you. Her image looked tired but determined. We cannot change what happened here, but we can make sure it teaches the universe a lesson. Every galaxy that learns from your mistakes brings us closer to stopping the hunger that travels between the stars. As the last light faded from the Milky Way galaxy, consumed by forces older than recorded history, faint signals began reaching other galaxies far across the universe. Messages in humanity's standardized warning format, transmitted by seed ships that had escaped the destruction dot in Andromeda. Alien civilizations worked together to build defenses that dwarfed anything the Milky Way had ever attempted. In distant, spiral galaxies, whose names humans had never learned, species that had never heard of Earth, prepared for an ancient threat because humanity had carried the warning to them. The Milky Way was dead, but its death had meaning. Somewhere in the vast universe, other civilizations would face the architect with better preparation and stronger unity. And in the cold void where the galaxy used to be, a few alien survivors worked alongside human researchers, studying the data. That might someday save everything that lived among the stars. Humanity's silence had not been abandonment. It had been the sound of a species learning to think beyond their own survival, planting seeds of hope in the infinite darkness for civilizations. They would never meet,